I'd like to introduce Jenean McBrearty. Jenean's fiction, poetry, and photographs have been published in over 160 print and online journals and magazines. She won a Silver Pen Award in 2015 for her North short story, Red's Not Your Color. Her serials were Raphael Redcloak, Guardian of the Arts, and the Retrolands can be found on jukepop.com.
And Lulu and all kinds of Amazon. But what I'm going to do is, and this is, I consider this a novel for our time, because this book deals with the Muslim population in Europe. It is not for the diehard politically correct people. If it upsets you to read about the issues in terms of what's going on in Europe, then definitely you don't want to read this book. But having taught political science for over 20 years, it doesn't take too much to read the tea leaves and understand what we can be heading to. And this is the reason for this novel. Now, who is Helmut Wulf? And what I'm going to read to you is, this is the intro of the novel, The Threat. Helmut Wulf was the child first responders rescued from the rubble of what once had been the Brandenburg Gate. For 2 days after the Berlin massacre, Helmut lay covered by the bodies of his dead parents, their remains protected by the toppled quadriga that resisted the collapsed mortar and provided a small air pocket devoid of dust for his year-old lungs. It was their dead faces he saw before him, so loving in their final act of devotion, as he drifted in and out of consciousness while firefighters dug frantically to save him. Gunter Wulf had been talking to the police on his cell phone, reporting the swarthy men with suitcases standing near the columns, and another 2 men hovering over what seemed to be a broken-down bus just under the gate. "Something's not right. It looks suspicious. They act like they know each other," Gunther said, not more than 30 seconds before one of the men, staring straight at him and Marta, and Helmut toddling between them, dropped his suitcase and ran. "Marta!" Gunther screamed, grabbing her arm as she looked at him with the words, "I love you," on her lips. She had seen them too, and knew what was about to happen. They dropped to their knees, crouching around Helmut, absorbing the concussion that would have killed him. They died instantly. Marta was killed when a sliver of stone sliced her back, rupturing her heart and snapping her spine like a twig. Gunter's limbs were blown off, but his portly torso acted as insulation. Little Helmut was unconscious for the first 18 hours of his ordeal. Relieved of panic and tears, he used little precious oxygen. That's what saved him, the medical experts concluded, his shallow, steady breathing, declaring life to the emergency operator through Gunter's still open cell line. GPS did the rest. "Lone Wolf survives," Der Stern proclaimed, and the photograph of a blue uniformed giant, Sergeant Emil Eisenbach, emerging from the ruins, his face streaked with soot and sweat, with the blonde baby clutched to his chest, won reporter Charles Turteltaub a Pulitzer Prize. From that resurrection morning on, Helmut Wulf was known as the Miracle Baby. Now, what happens? He becomes a media darling, and he is literally paraded in front of the public and is groomed by the Chancellor of Germany as a protege, and hopefully as a future son-in-law, for him to take over the German government when there's a shadow government that the Chancellor is basically forming. There are 2 parliaments, there are 2 armies, and it is the secret forces that the Chancellor is building. And he wants to have a field army, and here's this boy. Now, by chapter 8, and this is the one I'm going to read you, the world leaders are aghast, because why? Helmut Wulf has decided on a way to cure terrorism in Europe. We'll repatriate. You have to go back to your country of origin. No matter how long you've been in Europe, if you're a citizen, it doesn't matter. You are going back to your country of origin. And so, while the world is outraged for a while, the Sioux dissipates, and now we're on chapter 8, where Russia has now joined in the fight against Islamic nationality, basically, in Europe, the Islamic citizens of Europe. The new staff headquarters at Etat de Guerre were luxurious. Helmut had a corner apartment with his own bath kitchen, a balcony that overlooked the Paris Memorial, and a king-size bed. We had a Muslim who worked in Bonn help us, Lieutenant Rudolph said, as he smoothed the corner of the gold and white chenille bedspread. We figured it would do until Madame Wolf arrives. Did a fine job. Is he the one who did the meeting room too? It's beautiful. Helmut stepped out onto the balcony. She'll love this view, the memorial gardens. He's quite good. He's hoping you'll appreciate his artistry enough to see him. He's begged me for an interview. Will you see him? Yes, as soon as the Russian delegation has left. Of course. You've done an excellent job in my absence, Rudolph. I appreciate it. Helmut walked around the room looking at the art prints so carefully chosen. The figurines angled precisely in the built-in shelves and the silk drapes that floated in the breeze over the French doors. Thank you, sir. The entire center is ready for inspection. You won't find a speck of dust on a weapon or a fingerprint on a buckle. This fellow you want me to see, is he a true artist? Does he paint, sculpt? He was the curator of the Stadtmuseum. His specialty is preservation. The Mideastern art collection there is considered one of the best in the world. That explains the attention to detail. The chef wants me to know what you want for dinner. Roast pork and eggplant, sauerkraut, and cheese. For the Russians too? Helmut grinned at Rudolph. What do Russians like to eat? I have no idea, sir. Because if we serve them enough vodka, they won't care what we give them. From what I hear, Russian cuisine is pretty basic. May I make a suggestion? Sure. Call your future mother-in-law and ask her. When I was getting married, I was given that advice. I've never regretted getting on her good side. How long have you been married? I was married 18 months when my wife was killed in a terrorist attack. There's no pain like a train in Spain, so they say. Her mother takes care of my little boy when I'm deployed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry, but I'll take that advice and any else you have. Vasily Provenko was a short, dark man who sported a trim mustache, wore all 13 medals, and insisted on touring the repatriation center in a convertible. Helmut obliged, apologizing to George, who had to change the security plan he'd been working on for the last 48 hours, and wore his Kaiser Cross, which greatly impressed Vasily. Don't be fooled, Helmut, Stefan had told him. Stefan is the chancellor. The Russians are a tough people. There's a reason Stalin chose the name. It means steel, just like Stahl. They'll be surprised at our humanitarian approach. When St. Basil's Cathedral was destroyed by a dirty bomb, President Borovsky purged the entire city of Moscow of anyone he suspected of being Muslim, including terrorists. The slogan, "Bullets and Bayonets," was embroidered on his funeral shroud. Just because President Yushchenko is new doesn't mean he isn't cut from the same pattern. Helmut could see that toughness in Vasily, the way he gripped his shot glass with his whole hand, the way he devoured his food without chewing, and the way his thick-soled heavy boots drummed down the hallways. Yes, in his meetings with him and Emil, Helmut could also see a keen intelligence and admirable stamina. It's time we took a break. Vasily was out of chocolate, a treat which he never seemed to tire, and it was near noon. That meant consuming more vodka and a game of backgammon with Emil, who generally seemed to like their competitions. Go ahead, gentlemen. I have a center to run, Helmut said, by way of excusing himself. Both Emil and Vasily smoked too, and Helmut wanted to get away from the sour air. So far, things have been going well. Vasily wanted to know how much it cost to run the facility and asked Helmut how he felt about being a famous war criminal. Prepared for the question, Helmut answered he didn't mind, that one man's war criminal was another man's hero, and he should leave it to history to judge him. You're so right, Captain Wolf. History has a way of changing all things. Maybe it's time for the Russian government to let bygones be bygones. Other countries have mutual interests. You need oil, we have oil. You want to be rid of Muslims, we want to be rid of Muslims. We need capital investment, you have capital to invest. It was clear Vasily wanted to talk politics. The backgammon game was a cover for the political game that was being played between two old-timers, and Helmut knew his cue. Outside the meeting room, Helmut stretched and flexed his back. Thank God, he thought. Emil was here to field the tough questions about a German-Russian entente. He had no idea this would turn into a full-scale testing of the political waters. He came out into the sunshine and took a healthy breath of fresh air. George approached him hurriedly, just as a vehicle entered the compound. "What is that?" Helmut demanded, as a white trailer pulled by an official-looking half-ton pickup truck rolled through the center gates and stopped in front of his new quarters. Gera rolled his eyes. Vasily's horse. His horse? What the hell? According to the Foreign Ministry, Vasily never goes anywhere without his horse. It's a cultural matter to which we are to be very sensitive. George handed him a telegram from the Foreign Ministry. Where are we supposed to keep him? And his groom, I assume. A tall blonde woman got out of the cab and strode towards Helmut with an extended hand. Natalia Provinskaya, I am Vasily's wife. She had childlike skin, soft and pink, and a nose speckled with delicate freckles. Helmut could imagine her naked in bed, but not with Vasily. He envied him without hatred. He tells me, Natya, I will be here to meet you so these German dogs don't eat you up. And where is he? Her smile covered her face. Helmut shook her hand, noticing the brown suede gloves she wore fit well, but were obviously well worn. He returned her smile. I promise I won't even nip you. He's such an ethnocentric, that Vasily. If something isn't Russian, it's no good and can't be trusted. We'll take good care of you and... Oh, the horse, Comrade, that's his name. You and Comrade Provenko. His words were lost in the air as Natya was already halfway back to the trailer. She backed Comrade out of it, and Helmut saw at once why Vasily couldn't bear to be apart from the beast. It was about the size of a Great Dane, with a smooth roan coat and a shaggy white mane and tail. Helmut heard an "ah" escape George's lips and admitted to himself that the little horse was adorable. Natya brought him to where the men stood and knelt beside him, looking up at Helmut with her smoky eyes. This is Vasily's heart. He won't be a bother, Comrade, I mean. He has all his food in the trailer, and I'll clean up after him. He's a dear, isn't he? Come on, pet him yourself. She took Helmut's hand and pulled it towards Comrade's muzzle. Helmut felt a jolt of electricity run up his arm. He couldn't have resisted her grasp if he wanted to. She was an angel who smelled of fresh hay and saddle soap.
3 minutes.
He knelt down and stroked the horse's velvety nose. I think he likes you, sir. Who are you? I am Captain Wolf. I like him. He's cute. Helmut said, George, come on. I know you want to pet him too. What happens, of course, later on in the chapter is that some of the people they have at the repatriation center escape, and they kill the horse. And because Helmut is a very politically astute person, he hands the miscreant over to the Russians. And of course, the Russians have ways of making people regret their behavior. His guards break every bone in the man's body, they sodomize him, they slit his throat. It's a mess. And of course, the Chancellor is very happy that Helmut did not get involved. So that is chapter 8. So anyway, any questions? Yes, it's a very sad tale, yes.
I might have missed, is this your first novel? Or?
No, this is probably the third. And it's probably the most political in terms of its, it becomes very detailed, and I just read you the simple parts, in terms of the politics that are involved in it. The Vatican also gets involved. Go ahead.
How was that, writing 2 novels that weren't political and then doing this one? Like, was it a change of mind in your writing process? Did it intimidate you a bit? Like how?
You know, it's really funny. I read so much nonfiction, and to me, this book is a nonfiction book. Because from what I see, this is the only possible course for Europe. I don't think that they're going to be able to undo what has been done in terms of their immigration policy. I don't see that happening with the leadership that we have now. So even though it's a novel, it's scarier than hell.
Yeah.
Because this is probably what's going to happen. You know, the names, I can't predict who. But But the reason I took it up was for my master's thesis in political science in 1986. It was called German Reunification as a Social Movement. And at the time, everybody said, oh my God, it can never happen, we'll have World War III, the world's gonna blow up, the sky is falling, oh my God. And of course, 3 years later, in fact, you had the Velvet Revolution and Germany reunited. I don't know if any of you know this, but we did not have World War III.
I
So,
know. Yeah, we know that.
it was all BS,
I noticed.
but anyway, so I've studied German politics for a long time, and that's why I say it's more nonfiction than it is fiction. So it wasn't hard,
Right.
you know, so. But,
When you talked about the horse, I'm reading books right now, it's called The Perfect Horse.
oh,
And it's about, it's from the horse lover's point of view of rescuing the Lipizans.
oh, yes,
And they talk about how Russia and Germany and Poland, the love of their horses.
Right.
So to kill the horse was probably worse than breaking his bones, because they worship and they had these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful horses, you know.
well, and the tradition, and I think it's really hard for a lot of Americans to understand, and you bring it out really well, is that this is not just an animal, this is his child. Because why? He and his wife can't have children, and they talk about being exposed to nuclear material, and they can't have any children. So this is more, the symbolism is, this is his child.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's real interesting about, you talk about the Lipizan's horses, the role that General Patton played in saving them is an amazing story. But anyway, so
This book's about how those people came to him and said, we need to do this.
we must save them, no matter what. Yeah. And in fact, he dispatched a detail to go save them, and he really didn't have permission to do that. So, yay, Patton.